Hello and welcome to another thrilling episode of Potato Cast with me, Internet Potato. This is going to be my round 5 match in the StimHack 3 core tournament with Loveless. So I thought that I'd take a minute to explain my deck choices before getting into the game. The purpose of this league is sort of a teaching process, and I don't really consider myself to be a great netrunner player by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it would be helpful for any other players that are using this tournament as a way to understand deck building, to have a little more resources for them. So I chose Chaos Theory primarily because she has in-faction access to strong econ through Magnum Opus, the best decoder in the core set with Gordian Blade, what I think is probably the best fractor in the core set, Battering Ram, which critically can be used to break really high strength barriers like Hadrian as well, that Morningstar is pretty bad at dealing with. And then also we have in-faction access to indexing and Maker's Eye, which are the best R&D pressure cards in the core set. So the rest of my influence is basically going towards the rest of the rig, which is Retrieval Run and Femme Fatale, so that I have a way to inexpensively get a Sentry Breaker on board that can also deal with things like Toll Booth or like super annoying ice that is going to be really expensive to break multiple times. The rest of the influence is on HQ interface, because without cards to mitigate agenda flood, if you can keep pressuring, if you can remote lock them, then agendas will build up in HQ, and having a way to go in there and grab them is great. And then emergency shutdown, which is another way to leverage the fact that the Corp is probably going to be focusing more on protecting R&D and their scoring remote than HQ, and turn that into an economic benefit for you, which you can use potentially to avoid getting punitive counter-striked. And the last spicy bit of cards in here is Infiltration, and this I like this card. It's sort of like in the core set, you have some free slots available because the power level is just a little bit lower overall. And Infiltration gives you a way to avoid a potentially game-losing trap, or to make sure that if you're going to commit to making a run on a scoring remote, that it's going to be worth your time and effort. And one other thing to note is that I do have an all-nighter and a notoriety in here, which will occasionally either let you get a 7th point, or more often you'll just end up installing the all-nighter early on in the game when there's not a pressure situation, and then burning that click later on a turn where you need an extra Magnum Opus click, or you need to get through Bioroids, or anything else like that. So let's have a look at how this deck does. Okay, so starting things up, Loveless will be playing as Wayland. We are pretty sure that she's going to be on punitive Counter-Strike from the get-go. And so our priority in the opening hand is going to be to have some way that we can build up our econ and not just get clobbered as soon as we steal the first agenda. So looking at this hand, I've got 2 retrieval runs, which is nice, and a test run. But I'm thinking that maybe I would rather have a Magnum Opus initially, but test run is looking pretty good. So anyway, pull the trigger and decide to mulligan, which maybe was the wrong call there, because test run for Magnum Opus, then click it a couple times is not a bad turn. Would have been a little bit shorter on draw and had to click draw a lot, so getting Diesel in here is feeling all right, and modded is going to be helpful for getting stuff on the board quickly without losing too much tempo. So I'm not in love with HQI because it's a little bit of an expensive install. Fem is probably going to go into the bin pretty early on so that I can retrieval run it out later. And Infiltration is not a bad card by search the imagination, but it's not exactly what I need to get going. So for the record, I've recorded this game about a week ago, so my memory of exactly what plays were made is kind of hazy. So you and I will be experiencing this together, fair viewer. So right here, I'm thinking, okay, well, she might be rushing something out. There's not a lot I can do about it. Like I could, you know, possibly get the fem, um, test run for a fem and then run it. So I'll infiltrate, I hope, and see what's in there. Come on, do it. Click it. Click it. Ah, okay, fine. So it looks like instead I'll just get HQI out and start hitting HQ. Feels like a questionable play. Like I should probably be ramping up a little bit. Though getting in there and seeing double archer immediately is very helpful information because I expect there to be pretty some hostile takeover scored pretty quickly, and so those are going to get turned on. And there's the punitive counterstrike. So we already kind of know that we're going to need to maintain an economic lead or a lot of cards in hand whenever we try to run on something that's been too advanced, so that we don't get double punitived. So, from the beginning, I'm sort of kicking myself that I don't have a stronger economic start. But we'll see what we do. So luckily, it was just a pad campaign in there, so there was no need to get hasty and test run a fem and then hit that server. So looking ahead here, probably my best play right now would be to either go ahead and just like deal with the fact that I have to money up and test run Magnum Opus and charge up, or dig hard for some sort of R&D pressure, because like right now that I know that of the 6 cards in HQ, 2 of them are archers, which you can't really get much use out of for protecting R&D. And were I to be able to find an indexing or a maker's eye, I would have a good shot at stealing some points. With the single punitive in hand, I can't really go nuts with that, especially because maker's eye would set me back a little bit economically. But on the other hand, she's probably just going to get richer as the game goes on. So, getting in there and stealing a couple of points before the double punitive threat is online could have been a decent play. So since R&D is defended, I've apparently decided that it might not be an archer, and I should just go ahead and grab Magnum Opus and money up. And that's probably fair because I know that she has at least one punitive in hand, and the best way for me to safely steal agendas is going to be to just be ahead of her economically for as long as possible. So I think this is an interesting matchup because Wayland has an incentive to try to rush out quickly before my Magnum Opus can put me ahead in long-term econ. But at the same time, with all of the transactions that are available in the core set, Wayland can very quickly amass a credit lead that is going to basically leave a very wide scoring window where until I have clicked Magnum Opus enough times to surpass that, I feel like I can't safely run remote servers. So here I've decided that I just need to make sure I have an economic head start or I don't get too far behind in the race. So, as appealing as that remote is, I really don't have a good way to challenge it. The previous turn being able to test run Magnum Opus, click it, put it on top while I have a Diesel and modded in hand. Maybe I didn't have the modded yet, but having the Diesel in hand is probably the least inefficient way that I could have gotten it on the board. So I like that. So now we'll find out whether um, this install advanced play was bait, or whether it was actually an agenda. And it looks like it was bait. So, hooray for caution. So now we're left wondering, is this some sort of double bluff, or, what are we working with here? Now that we have retrieval run fem online, I can go ahead and overdraw and dump the fem in the bin. This is a pretty easy play to spot, especially in this meta. So you do run the risk of having your opponent play something over archives that's going to be hard for you to deal with. And in that sense, I think it's a little bit safer and shaper when you have tools like test run to get you another way to get into to archives once your fem is in the bin. So it turns out it was private security force, which is maybe fine, because we're going to be pretty low on credits, assuming that we could even get in there. And here I have to be really cautious, because I do know that there are probably two archers. I'm guessing the innermost ice on R&D, and then probably the innermost ice on server 2 are the two archers that I saw earlier. So, while nobody really wants to forfeit private security force, being able to do so, if it would knock out Magnum Opus and Gordian Blade, would be a pretty strong play. So, the threat of those archers and the threat of punitive counter-strike has really put me in a bind here, where I need to be building up my rig to the extent that I can deal with hitting an archer, and also I need to be building up my econ to the point where I can survive a punitive counter-strike trace or two. So, so far this game is really, I think, going in Loveless's favor. I'm going to eventually be able to build up a rig that can challenge everything, but until then, she can just be jamming agendas, and as long as that doesn't put her too low on credits to threaten a punitive trace or snares or other nasty traps, I'm not going to have much to do about it. So this is probably the first time in the game where I have a credible way to actually challenge the remote and not get nuked. And basically, as soon as I started that sentence, she scored a hostile takeover and moved ahead in credits. So I really have to kind of catch up again and get my money together. So now that she's on 20 credits, I'm on 25. There's something double advanced, and I have the tools necessary to go steal it necessary. My play here is to use infiltration to take a look at what the card is and figure out whether it's actually worth running it. I'm happy that I had that, because it turns out it's an aggressive secretary, and that would have been a game-losing play to hit that and lose Magnum Opus and Gordian Blade. So I'll go ahead and leave that and instead take some credits. So frequently when you spot a failed trap like that, your opponent is telegraphing that they have an agenda in hand that they want to score. And the trap was kind of a way to test whether, whether the runner is into checking remotes right now, and B, if they do hit a trap, then it's likely to open a scoring window where the runner's on their back foot, and the corp can follow up by installing a real agenda and scoring it. So then this play of putting another ice over server 2 makes me fairly confident that she has an agenda in hand. And maybe giving up one agenda in the early game is fine. A second, not great. I really don't want to give her a third agenda right now, because that's going to probably that's going to put her on game point, and then I'm going to have to start checking that remote, which is looking more and more expensive. So I think that a better play, whatever I do next, is probably going to be the wrong thing. um, but I think that the better play, I'm not really sure. Why the hell did I expose that right now? Anyway, well, whatever. So I know that there's a Hadrian's over that remote and probably an Archer. And so, um, yeah, what are we doing here? Doug, you dummy. What's this all about? So retrieval run of Fem. Fem the Hadrians. And then, okay, right, because I wanted to get a Fem online so that I had a way to deal with Archer, even if I have to pay for it the hard way. And I wanted to make sure that I was femming something useful over server 2. So I chose to fem the Hadrian's Wall, again expecting that the innermost ice is an Archer, so that while it is expensive, I am able to contest server 2 at this point. I feel like spending the money to break that. Well, whatever, it's fine, I guess. Anyway, so we found a punitive Counter-Strike and an Enigma. Gain a little money. So, it is likely to be an extremely taxing remote, regardless of whether we can get in, because Hadrian's is going to be 2 for Fem to deal with, and then Archer is going to be another 12 for Fem to deal with, or 11 if I let her gain 2 credits. So with this, it's all advanced play. It's kind of throwing down a gauntlet. Like, are you going to actually come check this thing out or what? Let's see what I do. And again, knowing that she has at least 1 punitive in hand, and a run on the server is going to cost me like 14 credits probably. Yeah, that's the ticket. I don't want to go in there and eat a couple punitive counter strikes. So I have chosen to play the Maker's Eye instead. So it's not unexpected, but it is a little unfortunate to see this Archer get rezzed. It's incredibly expensive to deal with. Her being on 15 credits means that she'd be able to win 1 punitive Counter-Strike trace, but not 2 of them. So I'm, not in the worst shape to make this run right now. So we saw an ice wall and a pop-up window in addition to the June bug, which, is good to know about. Which means that I am going to need a battering ram pretty soon. And I have kind of put myself in an awkward position with memory where I only have 1 MU free right now. And I'm going to need to basically get a Dinosaurus out before I can really contest the server next turn, because, so seeing this Pryrick get scored is pretty rough, because I know that she's going to get another Archer res out of it, and that's basically going to make it so expensive for me to run anywhere that I'm going to leave myself open for a punitive Counter-Strike, and she is going to be free just to jam agendas. So looking at the state right now, probably what I should be doing is like figuring out a good way to get into R&D reliably, and pressuring HQ. Anyway, we find battering ram. Interestingly, the Archer was on the outside of that remote, not the inside, so I have no idea what that inside ice is on server 2. And with the retrieval run back in hand, I'm looking at installing battering ram, trashing the fem for my rig to make space for it, and then being able to retrieval run fem back in order to get into R&D. So I've decided to dump notoriety. No, I've decided to dump, yes, notoriety and Gordian Blade. Gordian because I didn't need the extra, and notoriety because I think that I want to keep these utility cards in hand. I'd like to be able to surprise with the battering ram if possible. And it's going to be so expensive to get into R&D that I'm probably going to, well, I don't know, maybe I should have kept the notoriety. I don't know. Having stim hack here and battering ram in hand and retrieval run kind of leaves me where I have probably just enough credits to actually contest this remote with the retrieval run fem battering ram play. Oh, but I'm still short on MU then. Yeah. But since she's on 5 points with something in there, I really have to make this run. Anyway, this is a really fun game. I mean, Netrunner is a fun game, but this particular game of Netrunner is also was a really good one up until this point, and is going to continue to be good for a while. Where it's been like we've really been quite close to each other economically. As time has been going on, like she's just been making her servers incredibly taxing, and so like my plan is sort of evolving, or should be evolving towards really making a few super high impact runs. So being able to use indexing, Maker's Eye, and stim hack on server 2 is sort of my way out of this mess. So her being on 11 credits means that I have a pretty good shot at getting into server 2 using some combination of things here. I know that she has an Enigma in hand, which might be the thing on the outermost. So I believe that what I'm pondering here is, do I trash Magnum Opus in order to clear up MU to get in here? Do I try to draw and hope to top deck Dinosaurus, or would that leave me too short on clicks to install that? So I decided to take some credits, battering ram install, and then stim hack this server. So I think that it might have been better to install battering ram and trash both fem and magnum opus, and then retrieval run fem for this run in. At any rate, so I pay the iron price to break Archer. Keep going, and I feel like she's probably not going to res the Hadrians because it would leave her broke and only cost me 2. And I think that I did the math on this so that I would, maybe not. All right, so we have enough to get through this, so we'll just deal with it. So we'll make our way in. And since she's only 2 credits, like worst case scenario is that this is like a pad campaign. Best case scenario is that this was the agenda that she would have won with, which it was. So like that run really put me on my back foot, and she's going to be free basically just to put stuff in there and score it out. Um, with one MU free, I don't have. I'm gonna have to trash something else to retrieval run Magnum Opus back into play. Um, and it's going to be quite a while before I have another shot at making a run on that remote, or making an indexing or maker's eye play on R&D. So seeing the test run is great in a sense because it gives me another way to juggle all these stupid programs that I have to juggle because I have managed MU poorly. Um, uh, but I really like I need to like my path to winning here is pretty narrow. Trying to build up a full big rig is a lot of steps from here. Like I still need to get Dinosaurus out. I need to get one of my breakers onto it somehow. And I need to get Magnum Opus back into play. Um, so like I think it would probably be better for me here, and I have to assume that she's not going to, um, like she's not going to leave HQ agendas in HQ, because she has such a strong remote that she's going to jam them as soon as she has the chance to. So yeah, I mean I would definitely not bet on Internet Potato in this match at this point in the game. I mean, even HQ is reasonably expensive. Like I can let the first sub fire, and it still costs me 3 credits to get in. You know, 2 with the hostile takeover bad pub. So and then this is a just a completely boneheaded misplay where I test run Fem, gain a credit, and I'm like, oh cool, I have 3 credits because of bad pub, and then spend Maker's Eye and forget that I have to pay for all 4 of them. Um, yeah, I think I was also probably tilting at some point a little bit here, because I was like pretty sure that I had no path to victory, and then to make a misplay like this. And so the rule for people that aren't familiar with it is that so Fem's special ability is that if you pay 1 per sub on the ice, then you can bypass it. But it's not like you're bypassing individual subroutines. So since Archer has 4 subroutines on it, and I only have 3 credits, I can't use Fem's bypass ability. Even though I was thinking, oh, I'll let the gain 2 fire. So this is dumb. I mean, like, the way that I would have pulled a win here would be to luckily hit 5 points of agendas on top of this and win immediately without getting flatlined by the punitive next turn. Because I know that she still has a punitive in hand. At any rate, Loveless was very generous here and offered for me to take it back. Part of me wanted just to say, concede. But instead, I guess I just treated it as even to gain a credit and jack out. So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like thinking about it, even if I had an extra credit, so if I had, it's basically at this point, I thought that she was going to advance 3 times and win in server two immediately. So I thought that I had to make a run happen that turn in order to have a shot. Um, and like now with the fem on top of my deck, found Dinosaurus, um, and no real good way to get Magnum Opus into play in a timely fashion. I'm really pooched here. So anyway, I'll let the game sort of play itself out. I think it's pretty clear that I'm not going to win this game. So spoiler alert, I don't win this game. Um, and like stop and think about like what were the key misplays or what were the key beats in this game that really sealed the deal. So one of them was that I should have been like I didn't really think about how essential having Dinosaurus out um, relatively early on was going to be to getting a workable rig up for the late game, and like that has like super hamstrung me ever since the turn where I made the it's for a while, but ever since that scoring remote got its third piece of ice, and I knew that I needed to get a full rig out. Um, I don't think that agendas have been sitting in HQ for really any period of time. So, you know, the HQ interface was not super helpful. Um, so, that's another, modded play that could have made hay with. Um, as I'm looking at all these indexings pile up, I'm just like kicking myself that I hadn't done a better job of managing fem. So like I think that if I'd had fem targeting R&D and had just kind of ignored that server, that would be in a much better place here because I could have relied on my R&D multi-access cards to get me over the hump. So here I'm going to go ahead and I hope dump the fem. Great. Um, yeah, like looking back at it, I think that's probably the best way to go because with indexing and 2 points in hand, um, I can at least theoretically score 5 points in a single turn off of an R&D run. And that, like, even if I use indexing and just shove points on the bottom of it so that I have a shot at, piling up all 5 together at some point, then that might be the best way that I could deal with the punitive threat once my magnum opus is gone. So maybe that would have been a smarter way to go about this. Like in terms of cards in my deck that I wasn't seeing that hurt me, it was really just the Dinosaurus. Like other cards that I was missing or that I didn't run into were like Emergency Shutdown, which would have been quite nice because making a run on HQ, shutting down an archer. Like she could re-res it and trash some stuff, but that would be I don't know. That probably still would honestly work out in her favor because I've really been burning through my recursion a lot. Man, what a game! What a game! So now, I mean, I can sort of tell that she's just sticking for cards, trying to find an agenda and put it in there. Um, there's only 16 cards left in R&D, and nothing is sitting in HQ. There's only 4 agendas been seen so far. So there's a fair amount of agendas in R&D. Oh, Sure Gamble. I have Sure Gambles in this deck. Um, Surprisingly, I haven't seen any up until now. At least that gets me enough to get Dinosaurus out. So, so basically, like I will be in a position to do like an indexing run with a single steel um, soon. So I think that actually like my out at this point is to retrieval run Fem onto the Dinosaurus, targeting the Archer over R&D, um, and then get to the point where I have click for credits until I have no probably click for credits until I hit 15. Retrieval run Fem the Archer over R&D, and then do an indexing run, and then I have enough credits to make two more runs on R&D to hopefully scoop 5 points and seal the deal. Um, she keeps digging and installs a card in server 2, which makes me think, like, okay, well, that's probably the winning agenda. So, the plan has changed, and, uh, now the plan is basically going to be, oh, okay, that was dumb. Um, no, I guess I realized that I wasn't going to have the credits necessary to make a winning series of runs on R&D, and so I had to just gain some money. And if this is the winning agenda, then so be it. I thought that advancing this 3 times was a little bit odd. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Um, but if it was Pry-Rec, then advancing it twice would be sufficient. Um, Maybe she's thinking about a stem hack run that might be able to get her done. Not really sure. Anyway, so we're gonna retrieval run Fem onto the Dinosaurus this time. Now with 3 clicks and 8 credits, so with 2 clicks and 8 credits, I'll be able to get in once. So it's not good because I'm definitely going to be in a position to get hit with the punitive counter strike. So I think that my best bet here, honestly, would probably be, um, well, at the same time, I think that's an agenda, and she's going to score it next turn. Um, because there's no point in her putting a trap in there at this point in the game. Um, and it's disappointing because I do see Project Atlas and Priority Requisition in here. So I am, 1 click and 4 credits short of actually being able to win this game. So what I probably should have done is put the Atlas and the Pry-Rec on the bottom, and then try to get 12 credits. I think that I messed this up the first time. Anyway, I think that I have some elaborate plan for making it so that I can steal the Atlas, and then leave it so that the priority requisition ends up on top, and then gain a couple credits and make a run on there and snatch it. So anyway, so what do we do here? Grendel on the bottom, right? Then Pry-Rec, then Hadrian's, then yeah. So we steal the Atlas and get 2 points, and we wonder, okay, well, maybe there's only one punitive in hand, and we can survive it, and maybe that's not an agenda, and then if everything goes swimmingly, she'll use the green level to gain the credits and draw Hadrian's. Hopefully she doesn't install the Hadrian's over R&D and leaves it in a state where I can find 4 credits somewhere and get in there for a run. It turns out it wasn't an agenda in that server. It was a Grendel and a punitive counter-strike. So, yeah, that's about what was expected. So eat the first 2, and I'm still hoping it's a value punitive, maybe. And no, it's not. So that's the end of the game. Yeah, really solid, awesome game. Netrunner as she has played, just like really tight scoring windows throughout. Tough economic battle. Lots of interesting beats that kind of turn things around. So, whether it's the prirec for the archer making that server impenetrable. Me failing to manage memory effectively and getting in a situation where I can't have a full rig and contest where I need to contest. And I was probably too slow in changing my game plan to focus on R&D and was still kind of fixated on being able to camp that remote. So, yeah, that was just a super game. Kelly did an awesome job. Really well played. Kind of had me hamstrung the entire game. So, yeah, this has been a cool tournament. It's like really stressing a lot of like fundamental concepts of Netrunner. And as the game grows and evolves, the things that were fundamental, like being able to spot scoring windows and open scoring windows, and pressure different servers at different times in the game. They might be becoming less fundamental as alternate strategies take off, but they're still there somewhere, and we'll keep working on them. So we'll stop here and switch over to the corp side momentarily.